Good afternoon. Welcome back to our English First Additional Language lessons by Miss Litucci. Thank you so much for subscribing, and thank you so much for also recommending, if not referring the channel to other learners. I've been getting a lot of positive feedbacks from you guys, and I really greatly appreciate. I will keep on working on perfecting this channel in terms of the video qualities and so forth. If you're watching our previous lesson, I was teaching literature, how to approach a literary text, and there are quite a number of concepts that I touched base. And I did promise that in actual fact, we need to do a lesson that is centered around character and characterizations alone. And that is what we're going to do today. So buckle up, and I hope that you'll enjoy this ride with me. Right. In our previous lesson, I did explain that without a character, we do not have a story. So a character is it's a heartbeat of the story. Characters are the backbone of the story. Characters are the frame that which help to safeguard, if not also to protect the story, because we rely on characters to understand the plot, which is the sequence of events in a story or in a short story or in a novel. So we have to understand what we mean by character, what we also mean by characterization. So without any waste of time, I'm going to now explain to you guys what we mean by characters and what we mean by also characterization. Right. Characters are fictive or real persons that think, act, or are acted upon in a narrative. Remember, a narrative, it means that you are telling what? A story. The term plot-driven is sometimes used to describe fiction in which a preconceived storyline is the main thrust, with the character's behavior being molded by this inevitable sequence of events. Plot-driven is regarded as being the opposite of character-driven, in which the characters are the main focus of work. Right. So in essence, it means that the characters might be fictive. It means fictive, it means that they are created by the author of the short story. It means that they are not based on the truth, but they're based on what the author is trying to tell us as a reader, or to tell you as a reader. And then they're also determined by the manner in which the plot unfolds. So it means that as when you read a character, the character will be dependent on the events that are happening. Remember, in essence, is that we rely on characters rather, to understand how the story will unfold. So characterization is many ways that characters are constructed for the audience, right? And then the narrator can explicitly provide character information, or can provide information that implies things about who the character. So remember, the artist here is the author, the writer. It might be the writer of a short story or the writer of the novel. So we rely in the manner in which the writer is going to portray a character to us. And then our duty as readers is to assess the manner in which the writer has portrayed characters, in order for us to come into conclusion to say, okay, this character is like this character is like this. We rely heavily on the artistic manner in which the author is going to do what? Present the character to us. But don't get confused. Don't worry. I'm yet to debunk, if not to dissect, and to give you correct nuggets that you would use in order to identify and to fully understand and be in a position to describe characters. Right. Means of conveying characters information to the audience. Now, in my previous lesson, I think I did say I cannot speak for all authors, right? Because we've got different linguistic writings, right? But central to all different linguistic writings are the same ideas and some same components, in which, for example, here, the narrator can describe the character directly, right? Where you hear the voice of the author himself or herself describing the character. For example, here we have open quotation. She was tall and muscular, but with dark eyes and a soft voice. These are the descriptions that are deduced from the writer himself. So it means that we can learn more about characters through what the author is saying about them, especially assessing. Remember, in our previous lesson, I talked about the use of adjectives. Adjectives are describing words, right? The use of adverbs, which are there to modify the actions that are being taken by characters themselves. So we know that this person is tall and muscular. These are adjectives. Né? These are words that are used by the writer himself or herself to present the character to us. So when you read, you take notes of such to say, how is the author describing this character? Another aspect is that other characters can describe her. We learn about people through what they say, through their words, through the author's words, but also we learn about people through what other characters are saying about them. And I remember vividly that I used that example in my previous lesson where I said, even in our life relations, we also learn about other people through others. You know, if you don't know that particular somebody and then your friend knows them better and they describe that person. So you find that in a story, we other characters may talk about another character describing that character. That again is another form of learning about the character. So firstly, we learn about them through what the author is saying about them. And then secondly, we can also learn about them through what other characters are saying about them. And then the characters can describe herself. You may find that there are pages maybe in short stories or in a particular novel where you come across a character having what you call a soliloquy. Soliloquy is a monologue where a character speaks to herself, and sometimes they use a soliloquy to convey their deepest emotion. So these are the kind of chapters, if not necessary, these are the kind of literature, I would say, constructs that can assist us to further know characters in full through what the author is saying about them, through what other characters are saying about them, and through how they describe themselves as characters, right? And then in a story, be it a short story or a novel, we have what you call a flat character and also a round character. You should be in a position to also distinguish between the two. What do we mean by a flat character? What do we also mean by a round character? Now, the depth with which the character is presented determines whether the character is round, which means that it's deep, or it's flat. So if I were to simplify it for you, the main characters, that which would see mostly from the beginning of the plot until the end, those are our round characters because we get to know them in details. We get to know the depth of who they are. Those are round characters. And the flat characters sometimes are just supporting characters where we only see them in a particular scene in the story and then we never see them again. So we regard them as what? As a flat characters, right? And then round characters are fully developed by an author. We may get to know them physically, how they are in terms of appearance. We get to know their mental state. We get to know maybe their emotions throughout the plot. Remember, we rely on the sequence of events in the manner in which they unfold in order for the character to develop. A character cannot just develop from the introduction. You need to move and grow with the character until the end of the story so that you fully understand how did that character grow against the unfolding events of the plot. And then, okay, too much detail, time spent in development, and then stereotypical and so forth. So in a nutshell, I'm not going to read word by word from what I've just noted here. In my slides, I'm going to speak to my slides so that I'm in a position to explicitly, if not thoroughly, explain the concepts to you in order for you guys to understand. So in a nutshell, for us to differentiate between a flat and a round character, we depend on the depth of the character. And I would say the main characters, we regard them as round characters. Remember I said mostly we see them in all, if not in most of the sequence of the plot. And then the flat characters, sometimes they only appear in the beginning and we don't see them again. Sometimes they appear maybe in the climax of the book and we don't see them again. So flat characters we don't really get to know them in details like we know the round characters. And then we have what you call a protagonist and an antagonist. A protagonist is the main character in the book, right? In the story. Even when you're watching a movie, you've got your hero of the movie. You always have Spider-Man as your hero. You always have Van Damme as your hero. So it might be a hero or heroine if it's a female, right? Now, these are the characters that the story is centered around them. Without them, we do not have the story. We see them from the beginning towards the climax where we see the main idea of the book, towards the denouement. Denouement, it means when the book ends and there's that resolution and the conclusion of the book. Now, those characters are paramount because we see them throughout the book, and then we call them what? Protagonist. Now, it is important that when you read, you must be in a position to study protagonists in details because they are the backbone, if not the heartbeat of the story. You must be able to understand what type of personalities they are with regard. Remember, for you to understand the character is character against what? The sequence of the plot. How does this person react when there's trouble in the story? How does this person react when there's a joyful moment in the story? How does this character react when he's frustrated in the story? So you measure, in order to really, really understand the character, you measure the character's reaction towards, if not against, the unfolding of the event in the story. And then an antagonist is the character who opposes the protagonist, often a villain. You know, a villain is that person who's always not so right. It's a person who is much more evil in the story. They don't like peace, and they always come against a protagonist who's there to maybe save the people, and because at that point in time he's a hero. So in a nutshell, an antagonist is the opposite of what? A protagonist. Now, there are dimensions of characterizations that are very, very much important. In the beginning of the lesson, I did explain that we learn about characters through what the author is, how the manner in which the author is presenting them to us, through what other characters are saying about them, and through what the characters are saying themselves. So now these are concepts that you can also take into cognizance when understanding and trying to delve deeper into understanding the characters, might be in the novel or in the short story. A physical appearance. Take note of physical appearance. I mean, if the writer is saying, here comes John dressed in a suit, he's very tall and dark, dressed in a suit, it's a formal way. So maybe this person is working somewhere, you know, it's a professional look. So if the writer is giving you that sense of professional look, already, remember I spoke about critical reading, especially when you are in grade 12. You need to employ critical reading because it will also assist you when you go to institutions of higher learning. When you do your assignments and projects, you will be able to read theories critically, and you develop that critical thinking, especially in English and especially in literature, because literature is not that easy. Am I right? I hope I'm right, but I can make it easy for you. So a physical appearance, you take note. Like an example that we have said earlier on, when the writer said somebody is tall and with a husky voice. Physical appearance, you also take note. Capabilities, what are they capable of? Are they capable of being compassionate to take care of somebody? Are they capable of showing tenacity where tenacity might be needed? Are they able to save people when they are down, and so forth? So you must be able to, in essence, you must be able to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the character, right? To say, okay, this person is capable of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but also sometimes this person is short-tempered. Remember, you are not guessing these things. You are, everything that you say in literature must be backed up by evidence. So you go back to the sequence of events and you check the reaction of characters. That's how you get to know characterization. And then demographics, it might be where they come from, cultural orientation, and also can also contribute towards characters' behavior. For an example, in Cry the Beloved Country, Reverend Stephen Kumalo comes from a religious family. Whenever he comes across problems, he's always having his sacred book with him, sacred book meaning the Bible, and he's always calling onto God. He's always praying whenever there's problems. So the demographics also play a major role in the development and understanding of the character. Personality, which is quite important because you find examiners ask questions that are centered around personality, even though they may not use the word personality in when asking questions. Well, I will show you when we do different question genres and question papers for English literature paper 2, English 5. I will show you that some of the questions are directly rooted in knowing and describing the personalities of the character. So after reading the short story or reading the novel, you should be in a position to tell us, but I think this character is a villain. I think this person is very kind-hearted, because he did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to save this and this. So you center around your analysis of characters around the events and how the characters reacted towards the events. Behavior, you know, how is this person behaving? Is she rude? I think personality and behavior goes hand in glove, you know, because personality ultimately feeds into your behavior. How is this person behaving? And then their role. Are they playing a role of a father? Are they playing a role of a brother? Are they playing a role of a... It's important to also understand the role, because the role cement the importance of that particular character in a story. And then you must also be in a position to understand relationships. A novel, for example, Pride the Beloved Country, consists of quite a number of characters. So you should be in a position to know how do they overlap and interrelate, because at the end of the day, each and every character, it is there to serve what? It is there to serve a purpose. Earlier on, we spoke about flat and round characters. I know in novels, we have quite a number of characters, and then you find learners who are focusing only on protagonists, forgetting the flat characters. Each and every character plays a significant role. So for you to understand the story, you must be in a position to understand all the characters. It might be flat, it might be a round character. Now, let us look at an example that I've exempted from Pride the Beloved Country here. I want to show you how you can understand a character. Now, his brother John was sitting on a chair with his hands on his knees like a chief. He greeted his brother, Reverend Stephen Khumalo. He stood up and walked about and looked through the window into the streets. He began to speak with a strange voice. You see, my brother, down in Donzeni, I'm nothing. I'm subjected to a chief who is ignorant. Here in Johannesburg, I'm a man of some importance, close quotation. Now we are meeting John Khumalo here, who is a brother to Reverend Stephen Khumalo. They are meeting after a very long time of not seeing each other. And then the manner in which the writer, see how the Ellen Patton presents John Khumalo to us. The appearance is that he's sitting on a chair with his hands, on his knees like a what? Like a chief. He's using a simile. Remember, a simile is a comparison that uses the word as or like to compare the posture of John and the manner in which John is sitting, to compare him to a chief. Ultimately, by just reading one sentence, I can see that John somehow is powerful, because I think of chieftaincy, I equate chieftaincy to power. So I can see already that, okay, John is somebody who's powerful because now he is sitting like a chief. And how did I draw up that conclusion? I have simply relied on how the author has presented physically John to us, right? And then furthermore, he greeted his brother. And then after greeting his brother, we get to know John through his words himself. Firstly, we got to know him through how the writer presented him, how physically to us, right? And then now we get to know John through what John is saying himself. The words of the character himself will help us to draw conclusions and to say, okay, to reach consensus, to say, oh, okay, I think John is like this. Now, if he began to speak in a strange voice, by manner of speaking in a strange voice, it shows a sense of arrogance. Remember, he's not speaking to a stranger here. So I don't see how befitting is the use of a strange voice, because he's not speaking to a stranger. Remember, he's meeting his one and only brother for the very first time after a long time. You cannot use a strange voice under normal circumstances when you are speaking to your own sibling. But here we see John using a strange voice. And there's a reason why the author described John that way. We have to reach a conclusion. Why is John using a strange voice? And then he says that down in Donzeni, remember both of them, they come from Donzeni. And he says, down in Donzeni, I'm a man of nothing and I'm subjected to a chief who is ignorant. If somebody can label a chief to be ignorant, it shows that John is arrogant, because the tone that he's using here, it's a sarcastic tone. Remember, tone is determined by the choice of words and the diction of words, the manner in which the character is expressing himself or herself. And then he says that the chief down there is ignorant, as if he's not talking about his hometown. You see? So it shows what it's a disconcerting tone, you know, and it's a tone that shows someone who's very much full of themselves and powerful and ignorant. And then he says that here in Johannesburg, I'm a man of some importance. Can you see that the last line correlates with the first line where the writer said he was sitting like a chief? And here he says that he really cemented the idea of sitting like a chief by further stating that he is a man of some importance in Johannesburg. So if I were to draw a conclusion from a reader by using evidence from this extract, I can say John is boastful. John is power, I would say power possessed, because he likes to feel powerful, but somehow he is also not only ignorant, but I can say he is somebody who uses a disconcerting tone. I can say somebody who undermines others, because if you cannot say the chief is somehow ignorant, right? And then you say down there you are nothing, and back at home you are nothing, but there in Johannesburg you are a man of power. So in this extract, I was just trying to put into practice what I've just taught you at the beginning of our lesson, that you rely on how the character is being presented physically, you check how others are saying about the characters, and you check about the words of the characters themselves. Remember, this is what you call a soliloquy. Soliloquy, when the character speaks out to himself without expecting any response, but that soliloquy might be used to unleash the character's most deepest thoughts and most deepest feelings. So in essence, you check how the characters are reacting to the events of the plot as they unfold. And with regard to protagonist, you must be in a position also to assess how do they develop as and when the plot also how develops. I hope this lesson was fruitful to you, that you would also help you to further enrich and develop your critical reading skill when it comes to literature. Now, in our next lesson, we are going to take a question paper and check how examiners are asking questions pertaining to what? To English FAL paper 2. Thank you so much once more. And please do not forget to click that subscribe button. See you next time.